Hello, seventh grade. What we're going to be talking about today is using multipliers to convert measurements. So this is something that I'm sure y'all have seen a lot of if you've ever tried baking or cooking anything, is a lot of times you get something in one measurement and you have to figure out, well, how many teaspoons is a third of a cup, because you don't have a third of a cup and you have to use teaspoons. It's really annoying, that or I'm just really bad at baking. In any case, this is something that's very, very applicable, and that is something that you will definitely be using anytime you cook, anytime you go out of the country and would like to figure out what a kilometer is. And just generally speaking, this is a very real-life useful thing to know. So I want to start with a question, and that question is that I have a tree. I have a tree that is 64 inches tall, and I want to know how many feet tall it is. So 64 inches tall, and I want to know how many feet. So what I need to do is I have my number, which is 64 inches, and this ends up needing to be in feet. So the trick here is to not change that number. And I know that sounds weird that we don't want to change the number, because we are going to end up with a different number, but we need to make sure we keep the same value. So whatever we end up with still has to be 64 inches. So what we end with is going to still be 64 inches. So how are we going to get this to feet? Well, the real question is, what can we do to this so it stays at 64 inches? And, well, if we have 64 inches and we multiply it by 1, that's still 64 inches. That'll work. I'm going to take my 64 inches. And I'm going to multiply it by 1, and that is still 64 inches. So now all I have to do is find a very creative way to write the number 1. So I'm going to do a fraction. So all of our multipliers, let me write a definition. A multiplier is going to be a fraction that equals 1. That's not how you spell that. That equals 1. So my multiplier is a fraction that equals 1. And I'm going to make this one right here into a multiplier. So that means I have to turn it into a fraction. Now I have 64 inches times 1 over 1 equals 64 inches. Man, I am doing great. Getting real close to feet. Except not really. So what I need to do is to figure out what my relationship between inches and feet is. So I know that 12 inches is the same thing as 1 foot. But if 12 inches is the same thing as 1 foot, if I make a fraction, I can have either 12 inches divided by 1 foot. And if I have the same thing on top and on bottom of a fraction, that's going to equal 1. I could also say that 1 foot divided by 12 inches is going to be equal to 1. So now I have a real fraction that I can actually use, and it's not going to change the value here. So I'm still going to end up with 64 inches because I'm just multiplying by 1, but it might be able to help us out with feet because I'm seeing feet in here now. So what I'm going to want to do is to cancel out the inches. And I'm going to show you guys how this works real quick. So I'm going to take my 64 inches here. And instead of multiplying it by 1 over 1, I'm going to take my 1 foot divided by 12 inches. 1 foot divided by 12 inches. And that is going to equal my 64 inches still. If I carry out this fraction operation, 64 inches over 1 times 1 foot over 12 inches should equal 64 inches, which is nice. I'll multiply across. 64 times 1 is 64. Then I have inches times feet. Because I keep my inches here and I keep my feet here, I have a 64 and a 1. So 64 times 1 is 64 times inches times feet. And on the bottom I have a 1 times a 12, which is 12 times inches. And if we remember, if I have something both on top and on bottom, I can cancel it off. So I'm going to cancel out the inches on top and on bottom. and that is going to give me 64 feet divided by 12 equals 64 inches. And one more time looking at this, if I carry out this division, I find that 5 1/3 feet equals 64 inches. And I am done, and that was a really painfully long way of doing that. So I'm going to show you guys the easy way now. The easy way is that we're going to write down our number. So the easy way is I'm going to write down what I start with, which is going to be 64 inches. And I'm going to write way over here what I end with, which is going to be feet. And I don't know how many feet yet, but I know I want to end in feet. I'm just going to put an equal sign here. So 64 inches equals some number of feet. And the trick is what I'm going to draw right now is going to be what is called a T-chart. So I draw my T here. And what I'm going to put in this space right there is going to be a fraction. So my fraction I'm going to use is still going to be my equivalent fraction, but on the bottom I should put what I want to get rid of. So on the bottom is what I want to get rid of. Get rid of. And on the top is what I want to go to. And that's easy. I know I want to go to feet, so I'm going to write feet right here. And I know I want to get rid of inches. So I'm going to write inches on the bottom right there. So now all I have to do is figure out what I can do with feet and inches where they're the same. And I know that 12 inches, let me write this down below, 12 inches equals 1 feet. So we're going to write 12 inches right here and 1 feet there. And I already have my equation all set up now. So now I just take 12 inches on the bottom, 64 inches, 1 foot on top, and I can start canceling things out already. Let me rewrite this so I can work with it a little more. 64 inches, 1 foot, 12 inches. And that should equal some number of feet. And I see inches on the top and on bottom. What that means is I can cancel them out. And then I just have to multiply the top, multiply the bottom, and I should be there. So on top I have 64 times 1 times feet. That is 64 times feet divided by 12. And that's going to be equal to 64 divided by 12, like we said earlier, is 5 1/3 feet. I want to do this a couple more times just to make sure that we get used to this whole T-chart idea, because I know it can be a little bit strange. And what I want to do is to convert, for my second example, 270 minutes to hours. So now I'm asking myself, well, I know I'm starting with 270 minutes. I can draw my T-chart. That's going to equal some number of hours. And I know I want to get 2 hours. So again, I put what I want on top. And I know I need to get rid of minutes. So I'm going to get rid of the one on bottom. After that, all I need to do is figure out what I can say about hours and minutes. And that is going to be that 60 minutes equals 1 hour. And after that, I plug it in here. So I have 60 minutes and 1 hour. And then I just have to do my fraction multiplication. So I have 270 over 1 times 1 over 60. 270 times 1 is still going to be 270. I'm going to get minutes and hours on top. Divided by 1 times 60 is 60. And I have minutes on bottom. The minutes on top cancels with the minutes on bottom. And I end up with 270 divided by 60, which is going to be 4.5. Should get 4.5. I still have the hours there, so it's going to be 4.5 hours. And that is how we are going to be converting things. That is pretty much how that works and all we're going to be doing. So I hope this was informative enough for y'all. What we talked about today was first the long way, took a majority of the video saying what exactly a conversion factor or a multiplier is. So as a friendly reminder, we talked about multipliers today. And then we talked about how to use them with our T-chart. So if you understood what a multiplier is, how we use it, and how we use the T-chart, then you are all good to go, and I will see you in class.